Paranormal Patio Podcast with Jason and John. Pull up a chair.
Hey, welcome back to the Paranormal Patio Podcast. As always, I am Jason, flying solo for this episode because I'm doing a sit-down interview with Lonnie Scott. Now, who's Lonnie Scott? Let me tell you a little bit about Lonnie. I first heard of Lonnie on Hellier in season 2. He's in a couple of episodes there, but more than that, and I hope I'm able to convey that in the interview. This is to stand on Lonnie's merits alone. He is a professional hypnotist. He's a tarot professional. He was actually in 2014 the Tarosophist of the Year, and he is a practicing occultist with various memberships and initiations into magic and witchcraft and pagan and heathen organizations, and he's an incredibly interesting person to speak with. So without further ado, all right, well, Lonnie, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's nice to actually converse in person. We've been chatting for so long.
It's true. I guess if people don't know, you are my graphic designer for my show, Weird Web Radio, and I greatly appreciate all the work you do.
Well, we all greatly appreciate the work that you do, man. Your show's awesome. You have awesome guests all the time. You're
Thanks.
like a rock star in the paranormal podcast world.
I don't know if I've quite reached that height yet, but I'm working on it.
There's a small breed compared to other genres of podcasts. I feel like the paranormal podcast folks haven't quite spread their wings yet.
That could be. I'll tell you, a behind the scenes kind of thing, if you want to know. When I started my podcast, I wanted to keep it sort of evenly balanced with paranormal themed guests and occult leaning guests, and because these are two worlds that I live in, right?
Sure.
And I found on quick. And I don't know if it's just because I already had a built-in audience more in the occult world from the different organizations I've been part of, gained initiations in, that just the years I've been very involved and all of that, versus my own personal sort of local level paranormal explorations and experiments. I just always had way bigger numbers on the occult guests in the beginning than I did the paranormal guests, and I started focusing more on them. And now I'm in my 4th season of my show. In fact, I'll be releasing the season finale here before too long. I've gained so many listeners over the last 4 years that, you know, those numbers even out. When I do have a paranormal guest on, I think they get proper and good attention now, but I had to build that on the occult crowd that I already seem to have, launched with, and I had no idea that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, the expectations are never quite how the things turn out. Things always seem to just flow the way that were meant to flow from the beginning, I feel like.
Yeah, could be.
You set your intention of A, and sometimes you get A via the route of B, C, and D.
Yeah. Mitch Horowitz and I had a big discussion on that, about that being the biggest, the thing that people trip up on the most, being knowing what you want, right? Like really getting down to being, one, honest with yourself, because sometimes that's hard to admit, and then 2, going for it and doing it. And when you go to get it, then you have to make this decision. Is this going to be a big open-ended, just get me there kind of project and see what sort of roads begin to open? Or are you going to try to dictate as many of those steps to the end goal as you can? And it's a bit of a conundrum when you try to make that decision. You really need to know what you want, but you need to have some idea, I think, in plans and steps on how to get there, whether you're doing it just mundanely building the podcast or magically speaking, ending up, trying to create some end goal using sorcery and witchcraft.
And that's a good segue, because not only are you this wonderful podcast host, you also have tons of experience with the occult, with esoterica, in quotes. And you're a hypnotherapist or do you prefer a hypnotist or hypnotherapist?
I prefer hypnotist, just because I'm not a therapist. I think the term hypnotherapist is misleading to the public. It gives the idea that we do more than we actually do, both legally, ethically, and just by our sheer abilities. So hypnotist works for me.
Fair enough. So you're also a hypnotist. I feel like, do you think that line between hypnotherapy and hypnotism also kind of comes into play in the fact that there's this like false sense of what hypnotism really is, and that it's really the subject that's doing most of the work?
No, it's so the term hypnotherapy, I think, came about. I mean, it's an old term. I think it comes about mostly because it's ego fulfillment for a lot of people. You want to feel emboldened and important, and somehow by saying I'm hypnotherapist, because everybody knows what the word therapy is, and it is in a way absolutely helping people. I just, like I said, it's mostly a legal and professional issue, the difference between them. Hypnotist keeps me out of that gray water. It keeps expectations at what people think of as hypnosis. It doesn't confuse anything by including the term therapy. As for the client doing the work themselves, that's true to a point. We have a saying in the hypnosis industry, at least amongst the people that I roll with, that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, meaning that, I as a hypnotist can guide you to specific places in your mind and help you make rapid changes to behavior and fears and so on. But I can't force you to do anything. At no point under hypnosis are you under anyone's control other than your own. In fact, I would argue, after about 12 years now as a professional hypnotist and seeing hundreds and hundreds of clients, that you are probably more in control of yourself, your thinking and your behavior when you're utilizing hypnosis than you are just going about your day.
So you basically said what I wanted to say in a much more eloquent way.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to downplay the role. Yeah, I'm sure you have. I wasn't trying to downplay the role of the hypnotist in the situation, but you beautifully.
Yeah. Here's another point, though, that I think the way you brought this up and the way I've explained it so far is something that the industry shies away from too often. In that, all of these things happen in the client's mind, and I'm a guide, and it's you that's got to open the door. But at the same time, it is remarkably easy to manipulate people, even unwittingly at times, to experience emotions and memory and even physical sensations and unwanted thoughts in a way that they did not intend to, and it can radically change their day. And you don't even have to be a hypnotist to do this, but I think a hypnotist has a certain ethical responsibility to be careful with their words, especially with clients, people who have paid you and they trust you to help them, not to do that unwitting damage or steer them in the wrong direction.
That's absolutely the way that it should be looked at, because there's such a misconception that, like, you're going to go to a hypnotist because you want to stop smoking, for example, and you're going to come home and you're going to cluck like a chicken. Like, that's still where a lot of society is at with it. I mean, it's a long uphill battle to rationalize something that is a little bit on the mystical side.
Right.
So
I could, I get that a lot. I get from clients to be like, are you going to make me act like a chicken? And my reply is pretty standard at this point. I always say, if you think it'll help, we can do that. But I don't have it in my plans,
Now, realistically here, Lonnie, how often would that help? I need a percentage on that.
But, if I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant. No matter what you do, keep a pink elephant out of your mind. You've got to think of a pink elephant before your mind can begin to suppress it. And I've already given you an unwanted thought, and it didn't require your participation in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
That's not potentially damaging in any way. But let's say that I don't know if you've got some trauma in your past, and this is part of why I don't like people who rely entirely on regression as a means to help people with hypnosis. But let's say you're sitting in front of me and you want to help stop smoking, and I might say, okay, I'm going to regress you to a point in your life where maybe you started smoking, and tell me who hurt you. Who hurt you and made you turn to this? Did your father hurt you? Did your mother ever hurt you? Who made you cry uncontrollably so you try to soothe your emotions with cigarettes? And there are people out there who take this lazy approach to it with their language. And those are the sorts of things that it can peel the scab off of painful things that people just don't need to relive. It's not helpful in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
In fact, in the hypnosis industry, we're not qualified to help people with those complicated sort of things anyway. If they have issues that go back that far and that deep, please go see a qualified therapist, not a hypnotist. Secondly, if you go back to the Satanic Panic era, when there was this craze that it took people by storm, where children are basically being manipulated through the form of questioning that they're getting from police officers and children's advocates and psychologists, all trying to get to the bottom of these suspicions that they're all part of these satanic cults. And, I mean, people went to prison over this and thinking they were pedophiles, harming children, killing children. I mean, no one in their right mind can hear these accusations and not have momentary panic or anger. But it takes a reasonable approach to investigation when these sort of things come up, and when it's not reasonable and lots of false memories are being planted through lazy use of language, that you end up with these terrible crimes. And the real sad part of it all is, over time, many of these people have been released from prison, and you discover the truth of it all, and these kids grow up and they become adults. And as adults, some of them have even come forward and said they struggle with those false memories still being part of their mind, knowing that the memory is false.
Wow.
Yeah. So you don't need a hypnotist to fuck things up. That's what I'm saying. We tend to be a little more careful in our application of language.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole ramifications of the whole Satanic Panic era, it's fun to look at the things that have changed in the positive. Dungeons and Dragons was just evil, and now it has become such a big part of pop culture that you're almost viewed as a lesser person if you've never played it.
Yeah, it is weird. And shows like Stranger Things, I think, helped flip that a little harder around than like it ever had before.
Sure.
That show had such popularity, and at the same time too, like all of us nerds who were playing D&D and like Mage the Ascension and other role-playing games and stuff back in our early teens and growing up, we're in our 40s now, and we have kids, and we make the rules. Right? We're the parents now.
Right.
So that stuff is cool. Yeah. Imagine the disappointment of people when they find out that I found the occult before I found D&D.
But that's impossible, because it's made by the devil to corrupt the youth of America.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Man, I'm glad that I was born in 85, so for the most part I escaped unscathed. But there was still a lot of that connotation, and it exists today too in different ways. People are always quick to blame music and video games for violence in the world, and it's not too far removed from that whole satanic panic era.
Yeah.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I think it was Tipper Gore, actually, who went hard after getting like the parental advisory sticker on music and stuff like that. And then of all people, it was Luke from Two Live Crew who takes the war all the way to the Supreme Court. Be like, you're not banning music, lady. Yeah. I don't remember if those two cases cross swords. I mean, time and memory are funky things. I just know they were two major forces on polar sides of the issue, and that was a big thing.
So I have to ask I'm sure a question that you probably get a lot when you talk about your hypnosis work, but have you ever uncovered some real crazy thing or some really bizarre event in your hypnosis history?
No, not really. There is something in the hypnosis in the profession that you learn about and you learn to deal with called an abreaction. And an abreaction is just this sudden outpouring of emotion that gets somehow triggered, we think, because the client suddenly finds himself in the company of someone that they trust, they're comfortable, just like the time, the place, everything lines up in a way that they're going to confront this buried thing. And it's weird how that happens, and it's so incredibly rare. I've seen it twice. Out of respect for my clients, I won't reveal the details of it, but I can say it was incredibly healing for them. They just suddenly to overcome. And both the times I've seen it, they were just overcome with tears, and the session comes to a grinding halt, and I begin the process of handling this abreaction kind of response and guide them through it. You don't try to stop someone, you just guide them and let them come to their center again as they need. And it's just this, in both cases, in my own experience, it was incredibly healing. They not only felt like so different and profoundly changed for the better by letting this weight go that I'm not even sure either of them were aware they were carrying. And then the reason that they're seeing me becomes so much easier for them to make the change as well. And the one thing I will say is I knowing how awful memory is at being this perfect recorder a lot of times, especially for heightened emotional events, you're going to miss details and things like that.
Sure.
I do wonder, even if like those abreactions, those emotional responses are legitimate, like events that happened, like a weight that they were carrying that really happened, or if it's this gestalt of forces in their mind that have kind of glued themselves together until they start to unravel in the right place and it comes out as this emotional release. I don't know. I mean, I have a hobby in reading neuroscience research. I'm not even going to pretend that I understand it all. Yeah, the two strangest events I've had as a hypnotist in my profession. One is a weight loss client, and he was super tense the whole time. I mean, his muscles were he was so resistant to everything. And I was trying everything I could to work with the guy. And finally, I just said, open your eyes. And he opens his eyes, he snaps his head around real fast and looks at me. I said, this isn't working for you, is it? He's like, no. So I gave him his money back, and off we went. Right? I'm not going to bang my head against the wall all day, Right. So, and then I had this other woman. She was a Brazilian immigrant. She was probably in her 60s or so. She was really short. She had this thick accent. This wonderful character about her. She was just this great person. Gave up this great vibe. And I start this the hypnotic induction, I use a progressive relaxation with everyone simply because it works, and it teaches valuable skills. And I get to that part, and I have this section in there, what we call the deepener, where we're just sort of transitioning you from now we're starting the hypnosis to you're getting in hypnosis. Now we're going to take you into this metaphorically deeper state of hypnosis. But before I do that, I always have people visualize themselves somewhere outside, real or imagined, et cetera, and then I bring up the sky, being this wide open blue sky, and feel the warmth of the sun shining down your face. And all of a sudden, she jumps out of her chair. She says, oh my God, I'm healed. And I said, excuse me? She says, the light of God shine down on me and I'll never smoke again. Thank you.
Wow.
And I was like, well, hey, all right. It still costs what I charge. No discounts for religious interventions.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if it held.
It must have. It's strange you say that though, because I will randomly grab a file and just call people and see how they're doing, over time. And the majority of them are always doing great. And I'm not talked to her, but all of my clients know that they can come back to me, they can call me. I would think if someone had that kind of experience, like they would, if they stopped working, they'd call them.
I guess, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you say to people who think that it's all just baloney? There's no way they'll ever be able to be hypnotized. Everybody's just pretending.
Yeah, I mean, those people are out there. I used to argue with them, but I don't see the point, honestly, anymore. But, quite simply, we go in and out of different states of mind all the time. I don't think that I necessarily induce a trance. I think I just guide you to a more useful one than you're already in. Because when you walk around your house or your apartment or wherever you live, you're of one sort of mindset. And when you put on shorts and a t-shirt, you're in a different mindset. When you put on a suit and a tie, you're in a different mindset. Walk through the door of your home to leave, yet again, different mindset. Walk through the door at work, you enter into an entirely different mindset where you might become more submissive, you might become more aggressive. Different characteristics become to the front, others go to the back. You won't even use all the language you normally use when you go to your place of employment as you would versus in your own home. And that's not just behavior, that's just these sort of trance states that we go into, different little mindsets. And if you still don't buy it, think of big golden arches in your mind right now. What do those big golden arches start to make you think of? I bet you got a memory,
Mm-hmm.
and just thinking about something, right? And I have lots of other ways that I can do that. If I think somebody is like nagging me because they're curious and they want to feel it. But as for the real naysayers out there, I don't give a shit. Like, go believe whatever you want. I've helped hundreds of people make really profound changes to their life, and I've done it in a rapid process. I've had people come to me with disability, like disabling fears, phobias that they can't function in their lives because of these fears and phobias. And I spent 15 minutes with them. They're fine. Life back. Keys. Here you go. Go be human again. 15 minutes. So something's happening there, and it's. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Everything from social compliance, because I'm an expert, and they recognize that, to some kind of real inner desire to change, getting permission to change from someone that it's okay to get permission from, something that really happens in the mind that changes the process. I mean, we can't scientifically point to the brain and say, here's where consciousness is and here's why it exists. So I can't ever get or give a full explanation as to why things like hypnosis work. I like to study or keep keep abreast of things like placebo research, because I think they're the closest that we'll ever get to understanding why hypnosis works so well for a lot of people, and maybe not so well for some. Yeah. So
you said something really
a real
profound.
rambly answer towards the end, but
but in that scramble, there was something really profound there that you said, that was getting permission to change. And I think that's incredibly deep and insightful.
Yep, I agree.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I really do think so. I've helped more smokers than anything over the last 12 years. Myself included. I was a smoker, pack and a half a day smoker before I became a hypnotist. In fact, I helped people stop smoking for a good year in my practice, until one day I was visiting my parents, and my dad made a comment as I was going outside to smoke a cigarette. He's like, "Don't you kind of feel like a fat doctor telling people to go on a diet?"
Can't argue with that, right?
I was like, "Man, you're an asshole." Yeah. I didn't want to quit smoking either, so I thought, how could I develop a program to make myself quit as someone who didn't really want to quit? And I figured if I can unlock it for myself, then I can unlock it for just about anybody. And that's what I did, and it worked. Yeah, but the permission thing, I'm telling you, man, I think 1 out of every 3, I think it might be that high of a percentage, 1 out of every 3 people, especially for like habit control, like smoking, are just looking for permission from someone who's not in their peer group to say it's okay, go ahead and make that change. Because our peer groups will really fuck us up sometimes. I hope cussing doesn't bother you.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I rate my show extreme for that reason. Because, if you know someone who's quit smoking or quit drinking, or even quit like drugs, the friends they had to some degree were a support group built around some of those habits. And you certainly had groups that were built around those habits, and you'll become an outsider the moment you quit.
Yeah.
And your peer group will do everything in their power to congratulate you out of one side of their mouth and shove whatever it was you quit back with their, into your hands as they do it, because they don't. There's something, and I know this from my experience in interviewing people, working with people. Like, I've seen it now so many times, and people who relapse, that those people will sabotage you because they don't want to be alone doing the thing, and to some degree they kind of hate you for being able to break it when they can't. So when you make big changes like that to your life, whether you see a hypnotist or not, like when you make big changes, you really need to be consciously aware and review the people that you surround yourself with, because one of the smartest things I was ever told when I was a young man, and I learned this from the Army recruiter who drove me to the MEP station in St. Louis before I shipped out for training many years ago now. He just told me, he says, you're always going to be the result of the 5 people that you hang out with. Something to that effect. I'm sure I've paraphrased it by now, but it boiled down to that. He's like, you're just going to be the collection. You're going to be the end result of the people you spend the most of your time with. And choose the people you spend your time with wisely.
That's pretty good advice, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of advice, it's a perfect transition. So not only do people come to you for help with things like stopping smoking or losing weight, and they acquire your services through hypnotism, people also come to you for something a little bit more on the mysterious side, and that's to get some advice and things through tarot readings.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that for a little bit? How did you get into tarot?
I got into tarot early on in my occult exploration. I was really young, 13, 14, somewhere in there. I don't know when I got my first deck of cards. I got the the one that everybody thinks of, I call it the Waite Smith deck, but a lot of people know it as the Rider Waite. When most people think of tarot, they probably bring images of that deck to their mind. I toyed around with them. I got a book. I don't even remember what it was back then, and kind of was trying to figure it out while I was trying to figure everything else out. It didn't stick my first go around with it. I went down a different road. Fast forward several years, I've become pretty good with divination through runes, and that was my thing. And I understood tarot, but it was still just kind of this side thing. Wasn't a big part of my life. And some things happened, and I end up in this conversation with a friend of mine from one of the pagan forums I was always on, and I had been hounding her for tarot readings over something because she was a tarot reader professionally down in Florida, and she's like, I think you really have this like understanding of tarot. You're not giving yourself credit for it. I think you'll like it. You should get more into it. And I'm like, no. And she ends up giving me her username and password to this old tarot forum. Unfortunately it's gone now, and it was this awesome thing. It was the Eclectic Tarot Forum, and any tarot readers out there will know it. It was this beautiful, like old school forum thing on the web, purple background, and like people knew what it was. And I logged in, and the one of the first things I see in the forum is in like the announcements at the top. It's all capital letters. It's like golden ticket opportunity. And when I saw that, my brain goes directly to Willy Wonka, and I think, gotta see what that is, right?
Papa's about to win him a chocolate factory.
Yeah, but what is this? And click on it. I'm thinking, I want to meet an Oompa Loompa. Although Oompa Loompas are like angels in the Bible. Do you really ever want to meet one? They don't ever show up to help you.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So leave it to me to compare Oompa Loompas to angels in the Bible. That's how I roll. So
hey, I'm on board.
So I get into this forum. I click on the thing because I'm curious, and it was a promotional thing from Marcus Katz and Sally Goodwin around the upcoming release of their book, Around the Tarot in 78 Days. And I signed up for it. Or I signed up for the contest, and I won.
Congratulations!
So I went out and got another tarot deck because I didn't really have one anymore, and ordered their book through Amazon and waited for the course to start. And it was this really cool online format, video lessons and PDF lessons, and it was every day for 78 days when it started after the book came out. And Janine Worthington taught most of it. And she's a great tarot teacher and reader. She's even created a deck of her own. I can't recall the name of it right now. I apologize to her for that. Because she's just a great human being, and had a lot to do with me getting back into tarot. And then Marcus would get involved at certain points throughout the course. Marcus and I are very good friends today. I've been ever since then. In fact, ever since the end of that course, I ended up an administrator with their social media for the Tarosophy Tarot Professionals Association. And it's the Tarot Professionals group on Facebook. If anybody's curious. In fact, if you buy a tarot deck that's printed by Lo Scarabo, there will probably be a card in there that promotes our group to come join it on Facebook. And cool. I'm one of your moderators. And we've got tons of resources and stuff for it. But yeah, that's how I ended up back into tarot. Something clicked this time around that never really, and I think maybe it was because when I started, I was getting my hands on whatever I could.
Right. At
the library, at Walden Books. I won't tell you how we got our books from Walden Books, even though that company doesn't exist anymore. I don't know if there's a statute on these things. There was one like metaphysical store in Champaign, Illinois. It's about 45 miles north of me. Back then, it was called Insight Metaphysical, and it was near campus for the U of I. We'd go up there and carpool and do our thing, and like it was just hard to get stuff. So you were just exploring, trying to figure out where you fit in, I guess, and what resonated, what made sense. And I was experimenting. I don't know about all my friends, but I was willing to try, see if the shit worked.
Right.
And some tarot later, like something just made sense to me again, and it's my occult drug of choice. Take me anywhere. And I'm not kidding. My fiance, I'll drag her in here and tell you, like, you take me anywhere. And the first thing I do is I look to see where all the occult stores are. and then I visit all those stores before we leave a place. And when I walk through the door, I go straight to the tarot section to see if there's something I want.
Yeah. And you walk out. You walk out of the store with armloads of tarot cards, and you just keep saying to yourself, at least it's not Beth.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point. Although, I'm pretty picky with my tarot. I mean, there's plenty of tarot collectors out there who are way worse than me, because I'm picky. I would say at least a third, maybe more, of my decks are from Kickstarter. Like, I really love Kickstarter for unique creator decks. They're pretty badass coming out of there.
You have a lot more freedom whenever you're in charge of your own product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you do. And I mean, Kickstarter comes with that caveat: you can get burned. Okay, there's no restitution of your money if the creator bails. I've been burned twice. One was not the creator's fault. I knew her personally. I knew she wasn't doing that to people on purpose. Like, she paid the artist to do all of the creation, and the artist took her money and ran.
Oh,
so
bummer.
There was that. Yeah. And to her credit, she spent a few years paying everybody back. And when it came to my tier level to give the money back, I'm like, you know what? Keep the money. Like, happy birthday. I couldn't. I was really hoping most people did that, because she was in a pretty bad spot for that. And then the other guy, I kind of knew him from the tarot community. I'm not going to out anybody, but he just flat out fucking lied and stole people's money, and that was a shitty thing to do. I promoted him in different groups and forums, and I regret that. Like, I shouldn't have done that for him, but there was no clue to me. He's putting out artwork, it looked cool, and thought, yeah, this is cool, and I know people who'd love it too. And yeah, he just screwed us all over. It happens, but thankfully, like I said, I bought a lot of decks on Kickstarter, and I've had it happen exactly twice. So I like my odds.
That's pretty good odds, really. I mean, how many do you think you have supported over the years? Unless you're embarrassed to say.
That's not fair. No. Several. Maybe around 20. I don't know.
Yeah, so
somewhere around 20.
That's 90%. I mean, that's pretty good odds.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around there. And sometimes, you're not. It's not as big a risk as you think it might be. Like the one I've been the Kickstarter deck I'm waiting on right now. I backed it like well over a year ago, but it's being done by Los Scarabo, and it's like the Goetia. It's all based on that, and the Goetic demons and spirits, and like one of my absolute favorite tarot artists, Fabio Listrani. I hope I said his name right.
I'll never know if you did or not.
Fabio Listrani. I should look it up before I fuck it up. He is, oh man, he's so good. He's just a really talented artist, and that's something I appreciate about tarot is, I mean, ultimately tarot is a collection of 78 pieces of cardboard with pictures on them, right?
Right.
So the pictures, the art has to like not only convey the message of the card, but it if it doesn't like speak to you as the reader, like it doesn't make sense to have it, as far as I'm concerned, just to have it.
Right.
Even my collector decks that I don't read professionally with, I get them out and I flip through them and I look at them. I just enjoy having that art. Some people buy big pieces of art to put it on their wall. I buy little card-sized shaped, card-sized pictures of tarot.
And eventually you'll still take up the same amount of space.
Yeah, I've occupied a bookshelf.
That's
And
not
then,
so bad.
You know, they've spread out to
A bookshelf
plus
in every room.
plus the one in my car. I have kept a tarot deck in my car since the day I went pro to charge readings for them because you just never know.
Is it the same deck, or do you alternate it?
No, it's actually funny enough. It's the same deck. It's the steampunk deck by Ali Fell. He's the artist. Barbara Moore was the acquisition editor. Wrote the book for it for Llewellyn and put it out in the world. And it was one of my first professional decks when I went pro, and I just kept it become my traveling deck. It's in my car at all times.
Is that because of like your appreciation of it, or is it some superstitious thing?
Oh, it's not superstitious. It's just I think it was a matter of convenience. I had it to be honest. I think I was at a tarot party once and used that deck for the readings and left it in my car. And then I probably did a series of readings in my house or at another party and forgot I had it in my car. And then one day I remembered I had it in my car and made a conscious decision to keep it in my car.
There you go.
No, I lean more practical than mystical on things. Even though I can get as mystical as anybody, I tend to be a little more practical.
A lot of people overlook the mystical in their lives and write it all off and think that they're being practical, while they meanwhile reinforce the occult in, like, this is the profound example I can think of is the tooth fairy. Like, sell your bones to a magical fairy, your discarded bones, put it under your pillow at night. And then they go on to say how, ridiculous it all is.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I've never researched the origins of the tooth fairy, but that is some sinistry and like dark, macabre shit.
It is
like that's it's a necromancer. It's a little necromancer spirit who survives on the teeth of children and the lies of parents.
Yes, that is so dark. I have to do it tonight, as a matter of fact.
This could be
that's why I brought it up.
Badass horror story, right?
Well, what was that movie? Darkness Falls. Do you remember this movie?
Yeah,
it wasn't it about the tooth fairy?
So I'm gonna have to go watch that movie now, I guess.
Be prepared. Don't have the volume up too loud at the beginning. The only thing I remember is there's a big jump scare at the beginning, and it's so loud that it will wake the dead. So be careful.
Yeah. Jump scares are the laziest form of writing and movie making, like script writing or whatever, the screenwriting. What do they call that?
It's all nonsense, is what it is.
Yeah, in horror movies now, like if you're relying on a jump scare, you're just a shitty storyteller.
You couldn't agree more.
You should be able to get in my brain and fuck with me for days. If I go watch a horror movie, like if you tell a good story, you don't need to make people just jump because of loud noises. That's just lazy.
Horror movies have fallen so far and so hard in the last 15 to 20 years. Like,
oh yeah, they have.
The good ones are easier to find now because like all the others are terrible. But
yeah, my favorite growing up was Hellraiser. And I was a big fan of Clive Barker. I loved his books.
Sure.
Anyway, as I grew up, I consumed as many of them as I could. And he's not like Stephen King. He didn't write a lot of them. Just because, like, to this day, I hear chains rattle together. I think of those Cenobites and Pinhead and company. Like, you can't see that box, a puzzle box, and not think of Hellraiser. Like, it gets in your head, it stays with you, ages with you. Like, it can get to you in weird ways. Candyman was the same way. Also a Clive Barker story. Like, it could really get in your head and mess with you. I think they were just better at it back then. They were equally cheesy too in the 80s and early 90s. But yeah, now my favorite horror, it's not a movie, but the very first season of American Horror Story,
Really
I think
good.
is some of the best writing ever done. Fantastic, and the acting is fantastic too. So
Definitely
yeah,
my favorite season, hands down.
Yeah, that's the grand slam of horror writing in my lifetime. That first season of American Horror Story, for sure.
I didn't watch it when it came out. I watched it during season 2 because I had started watching season 2 live, and I don't think I realized that it was season 2, because they don't like number their seasons. So, and I found out there was a whole nother story, and I'm like, oh, I've got to go back and watch it. And I watched it all in like 2 days, and it was terrific. I'm like, this is so much better than the one that's on right now.
Yeah.
Like, I've grown a little bit of fondness for the second season. The more I think about it, like while watching it, I didn't think I liked it as much, but in retrospect, there's a lot of things I liked about it. It was really busy and it went on for too long, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah. I was the same way. I didn't watch the first season of American Horror Story, which was at Murder House, until I had watched Coven. Coven was the first season that I watched, and I fucking loved that. And I thought, what else did they make? And I went looking. That's how I found my way to the first season. Yeah.
As far as newer horror movies, I think my favorite is It Follows. Have you seen It Follows?
No. As I've gotten older, I've kind of stopped watching horror movies. Not as like this. I'm not repulsed by them or anything. I do think they're lazy with the writing, like I was talking about with the jump scares. But I just, as I've gotten older, if I want to sit down and watch something for 2 hours, I tend to want to laugh more than I want to like see something spooky like I did when I was younger. So I like consume things that I think are funny more often than I do like watch movies. It's weird.
I get it. I think It Follows was really unique though because it's a slasher movie where the slasher is an STD.
Oh.
And if that's not enough to grab you and pull you right in, I don't know what is. I don't know how I could possibly get you to watch it without saying that.
So the slasher is an STD.
So,
well, they used to kill like what was the order in which they killed everybody in the old horror movies was like the kids. They were always moral stories, right?
Yeah,
they killed
absolutely.
the kids having sex, and everybody that wasn't like rich, white, and straight.
yeah.
and virgins, like you were toast if you weren't any of those things.
Absolutely. And that was across the board for the most part.
Yeah.
So yeah, It Follows, like it starts this girl she hooks up with this guy, and he turns out like he has this thing that follows him and is trying to kill him, and if he has sex with her, then it's going to go after her. And so she learns that like she has to have sex with somebody else, and and the further away it goes away, like this evil force has to work its way backwards to get to the original person. So it's really interesting. It's not as filthy and perverted as I'm making it sound. It's not just a porn with a horror theme, like
Debbie does demons.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that. No, it's not. But if you ever are really bored and just want something to watch and appreciate, I think you might like it because it's not lazy. It's actually really creative, and I found it tremendously appreciated with my critique because horror movies are just garbage now.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So, how do you feel about doing a tarot reading for me?
Oh, I'm game. Yeah.
Do you have any cards nearby?
Yeah, I just sure do. Always.
Let me run out to my card.
Always. Yeah, always. My main reading deck now, if people are out there looking for a really cool tarot deck, is the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann. I just love this deck. So, what kind of reading are you wanting?
So, I have come to a point in my life where I feel like I'm at a bit of a crossroads. Something that I've been considering a fair commitment to. but I'm not sure if it will work out in my favor or not. So I don't really know if it's something that's worth pursuing.
Not sure what to do next, huh?
I'm not sure.
See what the forces are at play around you. I like to use kind of tableau spreads anymore. For people who don't know, tableau spreads are, for me, it's 9 cards set up in a like 3x3 fashion. Send all your listeners a bill.
Oh no, I don't want their answers. I want my own.
Yeah. Okay. So far, I see a lot of what you've already told me. In a weird way. Laying these out on a slope. Yeah, I'm going to tell you to go ahead and do it. That's for one thing. I can get these damn things. I'll set them up in a better way and take a picture of it and send it to you.
That's terrific. We'll add it to the post so that everyone can see.
To give you the basic gist of what's happened according to this spread. Whatever it is you're torn on doing, I think you need to lean towards that which makes you feel most fulfilled spiritually and emotionally. The thing that you actually love and want to do, if you're being honest with yourself about what you love, and makes you feel that kind of deep fulfillment, that's the direction you should be going. It's not a matter of indecision whatsoever. I do see an issue of perhaps funding, whether it's a matter of income, loss of income, more income, or where you're going to get the money or something to do that. Lean on generosity. If it's something that needs crowdfunding, use GoFundMe or Kickstarter or something like that if it's a creative project. If it's not a creative project, then it needs financial backing or to rely on more money. I would definitely hoard some of your resources if you're going to go in this direction. It'd help if I knew exactly what you're doing.
I'm keeping it vague.
Yeah, you're one of those. So those are two big standing issues right away. Finances are going to be an issue for this, so be clear on where the finances are going to be, where your actual financial security lies, and make sure that you figure out how it's going to be married to taking the direction of what fulfills you and what you think is really what you love the most. I say that because I want you to chase the thing that you love the most. There shouldn't be a struggle and indecision of this. The thing that you're wanting to do, I think you have a lot more confidence in that than you have confidence in your decision to go do it. I don't want you to walk or crawl towards the thing. I want you to run towards the thing.
Okay.
Have a plan of action. Know exactly where you're going with this. Kind of like we were talking about earlier with knowing what you want. There's echoes of this here. I'm saying that because, and you'll see it when you see the cards, that there's huge action and mobility of motion here, yanking you out. I mean, it's taking you from stop staring at the muse and wondering what you should paint. Just paint the fucking thing already, right?
All right.
So,
all right,
go be Banksy. If you want to be Banksy, you got to do the thing. And kudos to you if you know who Banksy is.
I do.
The caveats here, I think, still revert back to making sure that the finances have to be in order. Whatever it is you're torn about doing, there is a huge column of make sure the money's right. The backlash potential on this direction can flow back into sources of family. So make sure that you're lined up well with what you need for your family or the people closest to you that you love, that this isn't going to disrupt them. So you want to make sure that that's all bridged properly. Same thing goes for yourself. Don't allow yourself to wallow in self-doubt. Don't grieve over making the decision. This would come in the form of regret. that you've decided to do what it is that you think will truly fulfill you. If you lean too heavily into regret, you'll be dragged back down into indecision, and now it'll be worse because you will have done whatever damage. Because no matter what we do for ourselves, making a choice is a choice. That means you've eliminated other things that can't be recalled. And even if you make the choice and go back to the things that you eliminated, it won't be the same. You feel what I'm saying there?
I do. Absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, that's the heart of what I see here. My quick and ready ramble, like it's a pretty clear message, I think. Without knowing what the specifics are, those are the main points that I see here.
Interesting.
How's that work out for you?
The only thing that I have to really focus and think about is how the financial relates to it, and I kind of have an idea.
The finances are at the two most important levels of the reading. They're not, and the column that they're operating in come down to worry, stress, and anxiety, and like family, like the things that the people and the things that you love the most. So be careful there.
I think it's enough of. I think I can see that actually.
Without knowing the details, that's what I got for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I didn't give you anything at all, really. But I was focusing on what I'm asking, so I can work with that. I can work with that.
Okay.
You've instilled some confidence.
Oh, good. You should have confidence. There's two kings in this reading. Like, if in tarot, kings are big forces of bringing your realm under your control. So,
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Your word choice is very interesting.
Well, I ramble.
Now, don't be no. You can't backtrack on me now. Come on. That was profound, and you meant it.
Yeah, that's right.
It wasn't rambling at all.
Well, I'm glad it helped you. I'm taking a picture of it now. I'll send you these cards so you can see. There you go. Send it to you on Facebook Messenger.
Nice. Thank you. I've already received it.
Yeah, so if you're looking at these, you can see like that center card is the King of Cups. That's where I'm talking about the things that really fulfill you spiritually, emotionally. And you know what I'm talking about. Don't walk, don't run, or don't walk, but run. The card to the next to that is the Page of Cups, and that's your art. That's your muse. That's getting in touch with the thing that you love, and it's starting to take action and being inspired with the thing that you love. So what are those legs going above it? Because I like to read like how the cards interact with each other. Well, they're taking off in a dead sprint towards that raven.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's motion of ideas. That's idea in real motion. So go get that stuff. But over on the left, you can see those finances. Like there's King of Pentacles, big finances. You can see the Six of Pentacles. That's that reciprocity there. It's the forces of give and take. So, like, just be aware of that, because you got the Ten of Cups and all that love and power and stuff in that bottom row. But that bottom row, for me, is where the warnings are. Those are the things that are like you're cut off from, or the caveats, obstacles, if you were. So, yeah.
Very interesting.
After what I've told you, and now you can see the image of the cards, and you know what it is you're thinking of.
Absolutely.
You can see more information pop out from that spread to you if you really sit and contemplate it.
Yeah, I'm actually doing that right now. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to give dead air. Like I'm visualizing here.
It's your show.
Okay. All right. I'll do this more later. That's a meditation for another time.
Yeah.
All right. So, back to business. All right, so that's incredibly interesting, and looking at the images now, like, I definitely see a lot more answer than I think maybe you gave me. Does that make sense?
It does. And that will happen. That's the cool thing about the cards. Like when you read in person with someone sitting there with you, you can't help but notice like a client's reaction to the cards in front of them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this misconception that tarot readers are like mind readers. We're not. We read the cards. So the more conversation we have facilitates discovery and insight and more aha moments for you. Otherwise, I just get oracle speech and I start rambling out loud at what I see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but you know, I always give a picture, even if you were in person. Like I would take a picture and send it to you if you wanted of your cards. And like I said, you're going to look at that after I say what I say, and knowing the inner thoughts and secrets you just weren't ever going to share, no matter what. And you'll have your own insights based on what I've said, and you'll start to recognize a pattern or something that pops out, and your intuition matters too, you know?
Yeah. So if someone wanted to have you do for them what you've just done for me, or maybe they want to seek you out for some help with hypnosis, or they just want to listen to your Weird Web radio show, how do they go about doing all that?
All right. Well, Weird Web Radio is pretty much my central hub online. So you can go to weirdwebradio.com. And if you go to weirdwebradio.com, you can access my blog where I do occasional writing and things on there. You can access the show by clicking on the episodes. You can go through and click tarot. That'll take you to my tarot site, tarotheathen.com, to book readings. You can click on it to join the membership. That's Patreon membership, where every one of my guests I do an extended interview with, bonus material that gets pretty morbid. I'm not going to lie.
It's funny because I know.
Oh, yeah, okay. I was going to say, I thought you were going to say something else, but yeah, I get a little morbid on there. We get a little darkly personal. And it's a lot of fun, though. Every one of my guests, like, I think they sometimes like that part better than they like the actual interview, because it's just different. I've never heard anybody out there doing what I'm doing on the bonus portion. So you can get access to all that for like $5 a month, and that's all there by clicking join the membership. It's there. And I use and hypnosis, of course. It'll take you to the hypnosis site, althypnosis.com, where you can book private sessions with me for anything from stop smoking, dealing with anxiety and fears, weight loss, behavioral control of different kinds. You know, if you have a question, hit me up. I'll tell you if I can help you or not. And even the more paranormal leaning stuff that you may have seen in Hellier, those are available for more paranormal kind of trance sessions. They just cost a lot more. Yeah. So yeah, weirdwebradio.com is the place where you can find all these things. And of course you can stream Weird Web Radio, the show, each episode on my website, or you can Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, most of the apps you get your podcast through. It's everywhere except YouTube. I just don't do the monumental headache of putting audio on a video platform.
Something that you mentioned, you did bring up Hellier, and I didn't want to bring that up. I wanted this interview to stand on your own merits, not to say that your own merits aren't recognized from Hellier, but obviously, I mean, it's probably where you've gotten the most like outside contact from, right? Like people just message you, "Hey, I saw you on Hellier," and
no, yes and no, I guess. I've been, like I said, I've been at this for a long, long time.
Sure.
The occult and paranormal thing. I've worked hard and gained initiations and like set systems and organizations, and I've just been part of bigger organizations, and I'm known in most of them. So I've never really shied away from that occult part of myself, and whether it's within chaos magic or heathenry or the ADF or tarot or whatever, runes and all the stuff that I do. Like, I'm all in.
That's good.
So I already had like a lot of connections. What Hellier did, weirdly, is it brought me some hypnosis clients. Not a lot, like maybe 6, 7, maybe 8. I can't keep something like that. And of course, the pandemic hits, and like people are watching their money, and I get that. So like most business has been dried up for me. But Hellier seems to have, if it's done nothing else, it's given me a couple hundred more Facebook friends.
Oh, really? That's it?
Yeah. It's cool, and I'm glad I've been part of it. But as far as like a discernible, wow, my life is different because of Hellier, I have had random incidents where I've run into people and they're like, "Oh my God, you're that guy on Hellier." But I'm happy to say, and I'm actually really happy that you recognize it, that my platform that I built with Weird Web Radio has really been the thing that has put my name out there. I mean, I recently signed a contract with Llewellyn to write a book.
Yeah, I forgot all about even bringing that up.
Yeah. And I'm working on the book now, about a little over a quarter of it written. And that contract came about in part because Heather Green is my acquisition editor, and Heather has been on my show. Heather and I have maintained a friendship since she's been on my show. And she has been the acquisition editor for other people on my show. And I just had this random conversation with her, and things like, how do you, like, if I have someone who is writing a book and they want to get a hold of you, like, what's the process? What should I tell them to do? Because there's, if people are confused or scared, how, maybe we can help them out. And, she told me, and then the conversation became about things that I'm working on, and I've got blogs out there in the past and different websites that I've written on. I've been published in the El Has a Blaze anthology. I have an essay in that, and she liked my writing, and she knows me personally because of my show, and that's what made that book contract possible. So, and not to mention like other friends and connections and things that have come about because of the work I put into building Weird Web Radio. Not that Hellier hasn't brought some cool people into my life. In fact, I think you're one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hellier has absolutely brought cool people into my life. It's not like been a transformational thing for me professionally, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to reiterate that, like, I wanted to have you on the show not because of that, although had it not been because of Hellier, like, I probably never would have even known that you existed. Like, our paths just would have never crossed.
Yeah.
But like, I'm watching the show and like, well, okay, so this is happening. Oh, hey, I think that just said on the screen that was in Mattoon, Illinois. Oh, that's not very far from me. That's really cool. I wonder if this guy's online. Yeah, he's online.
Yeah.
And things just happened,
Yeah,
but
I'm absolutely grateful for being part of that show. I've worked with Greg and Dana on a few things. Connor Randall has been a guest on my show. Connor Randall is like, if you could create a human being to be like the perfect friend, if you're into the paranormal especially, right? Like, he's just a genuinely amazing soul, and I'd go to war for that dude. He's just a good dude. And he's a Catholic. I never thought I'd defend a Catholic so much. and Carl Pfeiffer, he did most of the filming for it. I'd only met Carl. I actually met Carl and Connor once in person before we did the filming for Hellier, the episode 9 experiments that I did. And I had met them at Ashmore Estates at a traveling museum of the paranormal and occult, the actual thing that Greg and Dana do for a living.
Right.
That's where I had met them. they were doing an Estes method experiment as part of a traveling museum membership event one weekend, and they're just all good people. I mean, they like when you're with them in person. Greg and Dana and Carl and Connor, Tyler too, are just really good at hospitality. They make you feel welcome. They're genuinely curious people. They want to have really cool conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on board. I don't get to have those conversations often enough, and that's part of the reason I started my show.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just cool to be part of that. It was really thoughtful of them to include me in that project. It's another really cool thing that I've done, and I got to do it with people that I respect and admire for the work that they do, and it's something I don't think I would regret. You don't want to.
Sure.
It was a good decision to be part of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Like, they definitely give off the vibe of everything that you just said. Like, some people you see and like they're just full of shit. Like they're not genuine whatsoever. But I don't recall in recent time anyway, like seeing someone and just seeing their absolutely what they are portraying. Like, there's very little in the way of showmanship and ego in the work that they've done. It's tremendous.
Yep. I like the way they gone about it. I mean, I don't agree with them on conclusions or the metaphysics of it all, but I mean, put 2 or 3 people in a room that think they do, and by the end of a series of questions, they'll find out they don't. So,
right. Absolutely.
It's a mutual respect for everything that carries everything forward, and I like it when I'm in groups of people who are capable of doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a really good note to end the interview on. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a lot of fun. I've learned a little bit, and I've gotten some guidance. I don't really know what else I could ask for.
Yeah, what would you do with that Klondike bar? No. Klondike, send us the money. No.
Send us all of the money.
Yeah, they still make those? No.
Yeah, no, they do. They absolutely do.
Oh man, no, it's been really cool. We've gotten to chat quite a lot, because of the designs and stuff. In fact, oh my God, I didn't even mention it. Listen, if you go to weirdwebradio.com and click on store, it'll take you to where all the merchandise is sold. And Jason is the one who did all the graphics for that. If you subscribe to Weird Web Radio online, the logo that you see that is on like the Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that for the cover, Jason made that. So if you have graphic art needs, please hit this man up. He does great work. I'm certainly grateful. So yeah, there's that.
Me, you humble me.
Yeah, and just thanks for having this conversation. It was really cool. Like I said, I like to have good conversations, and that's exactly what we did tonight. We had a really good conversation.
That's tremendous. Thank you again, and I hope we get to do this again in the future. There's definitely always more to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. This rabbit hole goes really deep.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You'll just be walking through the jungle of thought, and all of a sudden, there you are, 12 feet down in a hole. There's mud and sand. You don't know if you're coming out. And then there you get out, and you're all the wiser for it.
Nice. That's true.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and sign off here and give our farewells to the world. As always, I've been Jason, and my guest tonight, Lonnie Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Guilty as charged. Stay weird out there, my friends.
Until next time, keep the fire going.